Good morning, LinkedIn family. I'm very pleased to have another coffee with Bob with you all and to introduce you to a neighbor, actually, a fellow Chicagoan that I haven't had a chance to actually meet in person yet, but now we're doing it through our Coffee with Bob chat. Bernie Floresca.
Floresca. Yes,
Yeah, I got
sir.
that right the first
Floresca.
time. Yeah, Bernie's a great contact. I didn't even realize, we've been hooked up for a while. I follow some of his posts. And it wasn't until I took a look at his profile before this interview that I realized that, hey, he's in Chicago. Why haven't I met him directly yet? So I'm going to make up for that, Bernie, very soon.
Absolutely.
So Bernie, why don't you've got a unique situation that you're working on now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the situation is, and that's where we met. Just to give the audience a context of how this all happened is I'm about to launch a student workshop. It's called From Graduate to Hired. So this morning, Bob tagged me in one of his posts, and just for an exchange, I tagged Bob as well on this post about this launch. So over the weekend, September 5 and 6, we had the Pearls of Wisdom retreat, at which I was invited as one of the presenters.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a business audience, but at the same time, I was up to the student workshop From Graduate to Hired. So one of the things that I did for that business retreat was, okay, how do I address the audience by still talking about From Graduate to Hired, but still give back to them? Because their topic for that retreat was business, well-being, and spirituality.
Cool. Okay.
So what happened was, okay, so where's the medium point of these two? So I'm like, I'm going to try to relate to the parents in the audience. I still want to talk about From Graduate to Hired. And by the same token, I want to give back to the well-being and spirituality. So the presentation turned out, I titled it, Our Kids, Business Skills for the Next Generation, was what that was.
Okay.
And it's really promoting From Graduate to Hired. And then towards the end of that, part of my course is for like students coming out of college. I mean, you normally go through like the resumes, the interview skills and all that stuff. In my market research, one of the things that I found is, some of these students don't have the confidence as they get out of the gate to like find jobs, let alone, the pandemic happening right now. So you have all that pressure on top of them. So one of the other issues that I have in it is the mindset piece. So I guess the presentation that I did during the retreat kind of included that mindset piece for the students.
Excellent. And that you know what, that's an important part, because that's the kind of stuff that they don't teach in school, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
At least not in most common schools. They really don't teach that part of it. And more importantly, in most secular schools, right? They don't teach that. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that. So how's that? How's it grabbing so far?
So one of the things is I'm an adjunct. I've been an adjunct forever. So I teach at McHenry County College in Crystal Lake. And that's what I was telling you earlier. I thought your office was in Barrington or something like that. And I said, sometimes I take a shortcut through Barrington to go to Crystal Lake. But long story short, I couldn't connect with the career services department where I teach. So I kind of like reached out to my alma mater, which is like further down on the south side, Illinois Tech, Illinois Institute of Technology.
IIT.
So I've been collaborating with IIT recently. I was able to speak to their director of career services, and he was all about finding like different things as to how to get students jobs, obviously after they come out from college. So one of the things that he said, what is it that you guys are being measured on? And he said, it's the number of students that get jobs, 6 months after graduation, it's the number of internships. And then he was the one who actually told me that some of these students don't have that confidence. And that's what gave me the idea. So to answer your question, how's it going? I kind of like have that partnership going with IIT at the moment. I just connected with the career services director at the University of Illinois, UIC in Chicago. So it's just kind of like pretty much expanding from there is what's happening. And the nice thing about this, Bob, the same techniques that I talk about in From Graduate to Hired, and you know this because you're a LinkedIn person.
Yeah.
The same way that we do outreach, that you just reach out cold, so to speak, or you saw somebody's post, you're trying to relate to them, or, there's background of relatedness. Hey, Bob, I didn't realize you were in my backyard. I'm also from Chicago type thing, right? Just little things like that. And to your point, for a college kid going through school, some of these soft skills aren't necessarily spoken about.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of like all part of what I'm trying to share with, I'm starting with my alma mater or where I teach at McHenry County College, but eventually this is obviously information that could go to any student anywhere in the country.
Yeah, and I think educators like you are going to be in demand, and I think the kids these days, young people, I should say,
Hmm.
really need it because the employers of tomorrow, like I think there's probably over a dozen different big tech companies now don't even look at resumes at this point, right? And I do think the biggest gap today for most young people is that soft skill type of area, and that's where I think that guys like you are so critical to kids being able to progress further in their careers or even jump, take some next leap in their careers.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Because I mean, our generation or stuff, we're kind of like used to going to networking events. I mean, this Coffee with
Right.
Bob is actually part of that. But sometimes when you speak to the current generation or the millennials, this conversation thing, because, we always talk about them being, on the cell phone and all that stuff. So
Right.
some of these skills about like opening up the conversation or like continuing from there to make it interesting for both parties is
Yep.
definitely something that it's critical and it's kind of missing to your point. So
Yeah. 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 You got to deal with the Snapchat and Twitter and texting generation, right? They're used to doing everything in little short bursts of codes and stuff like that. And you can't make the human connection that way. And I got to think it's got to be very difficult for some of these guys these kids to jump into a corporate environment of any type, whether
yeah,
it's small or large.
absolutely.
Wow. So
Absolutely.
this is very cool, Bernie. I would really love to have an extended conversation with you, maybe do a LinkedIn live where we can really dive deep into it. The 10 minutes that we're allowed for LinkedIn to post these is never enough, but I
Oh,
think it's a good start to make
for
people.
sure.
If you all out there aren't connected to, following, or engaging with Bernie, you need to, especially if you've got kids that are looking to get into the workforce, especially if you're looking to expand
Get
your.
into the workforce. Actually, that's a good point, Bob, because actually one of my classmates in grade school, high school, he just got retrenched. He lives out in Singapore. And he
Okay.
happened to catch me at a time when I was like working on this workshop. Well, guess what? My current target is for students, but it's really all these skills that any job seeker could use right now,
Right.
especially in this market. So to your point, absolutely. Anybody looking for a job right now, they could use the same exact information and it works just as well for them.
Awesome. Awesome. Bernie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you've given me today. And I definitely do want to follow up with a longer conversation on a Coffee Talk Live.
I appreciate your time.
All right.
Appreciate coffee with Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too.